Good evening. Welcome to the September 11th, 2018 regular City Commission meeting. I ask that everyone either turn off their phone or silence it. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then followed by silent meditation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is a proclamation for Constitution Week. Whereas September 17th, 2018 marks the 231st anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document, its memorable anniversary, and the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Mark Preisinger, Mayor of the City of Leavenworth, hereby proclaim September 17th through 23rd, 2018 as Constitution Week. And we have Ms. Barb Kemp here to receive this proclamation. And Mike's yours, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to remind everyone, especially in the political climate of today, where it seems like every politician, no matter what party, is quoting the Constitution. And so how important it is to have a knowledge of the Constitution. We pass out these constitutions to the elementary schools, so hopefully they can get started, but I know if you're like me, it's been a long time since I looked at the Constitution, so I have some with me. If you would like one or more, just let me know, and thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Kemp.
you.
Next item on the agenda is old business consideration of previous meeting minutes from August 28th. Are there any additions, deletions, comments from the commission? If not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move we adopt the August 28th, 2018 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 28th meeting. Again, voted Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item, new business. We'll start with citizens' participation. This part of the meeting is reserved for any citizens who would care to address the commission or present petitions to the clerk. And if you have something to address the commission about, we ask that it not be on something that is on tonight's agenda. You can speak. You can be called upon later if it's something on tonight's agenda. Would anyone care to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come over to the mic, identify yourself, and thank you.
My name is Maureen Driver, and I live at 601 10th Street, South 10th.
601 South 10th?
South 10th, yes, sir. And what I'm here for is I would like for the commission to make sure that there is, I noticed that on 20th Street, they have a no littering sign. And I know that the board has addressed the littering before and changed a policy or two to adopt, aren't you with what the state does?
Correct.
And so I would like to see a no littering sign placed on South 10th and North 10th. That street has got to be the dirtiest one in town. I live on there, and there's not a week goes by that I don't pick up on both sides of my property and to the back of me on Walnut also. And I just think it might not, I don't expect the police to be out there policing it constantly, but I think it would be a detriment to the people if they knew, okay, there's no littering, I'm not going to do it.
Okay,
And
that's
I
very
would just
good.
like to petition the board to take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Are there certain areas I know 10th Street's one of the busiest streets in town.
Yes, it is.
Are there certain areas that are worse than others? I mean, where would you
Well,
suggest that?
I would say from Spruce to Cherokee is bad.
Okay.
That's an area that's really bad.
A lot of people say 20th Street, from Eisenhower all the way to Metropolitan's bad. People come by in the morning and
On
throw
20th?
their party bags out the
Oh,
window.
yeah, I get,
Yeah, I mean,
The whole way?
I get
I think any
empty.
of the main traffic ways, unfortunately, is sad.
On Sunday morning, you can always bet I'm gonna have some beer cans or bottles or something in the yard, or else the neighbors will have it too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank you
you.
very
Thank
much,
you
ma'am.
very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would support Ms. Driver's recommendation, and I would just add, I know it's a function of where we drive in the city and where our homes are, but Spruce south to Pennsylvania, particularly along the creek there, and I've mentioned that before when we had that meeting on the appearance of the city, that's a particularly bad area, and right on that, kind of the intersection of 10th and Spruce, believe it or not, there's, I think, a lot of
Every
litter there,
intersection.
so.
And I just asked the city manager, talk to Public Works about possibly getting some more signs out in town, and we did have $500 maximum fine, but now that has changed. That's what we're doing. It's potentially $2,500, is it not? If it's criminal littering, or was the term?
I think we can go higher than that if it's a third term.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
let's hope we can go higher. Yeah, let's just hope we get something. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get some new signs designed and then send it through the traffic safety committee. They evaluate all sign requests.
Okay,
Great.
okay, thank you. Anyone else here to address the commission? Yes. Please.
Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Tracy Knieven. I live at 3739 21st Street here in Leavenworth along 20th Street. And I'm here on kind of behalf of my daughter and my wife, Lou, who owns Artistic Works by Lou in Leavenworth, Kansas. And our daughter owns the Wild Way Coffee Company based in Kansas City, Missouri. And I think you all received an email from her within the last week, and I think the city manager did as well, about coming to support Lou's anniversary or autumn affair that she does in the fall. The next one is coming up here August 22nd. She owns a coffee trailer that she runs out of Kansas City, and she wants to come support her mom and, essentially customers with that. And she's licensed and everything in Missouri. But looking into what she has to do to come to Leavenworth to actually, bring her trailer and serve coffee, seems a little bit, more than what she can do for a 9 to 1 p.m. kind of, time frame. And so I was wondering if there was something that could be done. Talking with the city clerk and Bev Wilson, I believe, who kind of runs that program. The way it stands, she would be required to get a Kansas permit to operate within the city, and then a city permit, which again is in the hundreds of dollars. She's talked to the state of Kansas, and they said no pit permits required for her because it's essentially a one-day thing. And so what I guess she would be asking is to kind of waive that portion of it, that since she doesn't need a Kansas permit, does she have to have a Leavenworth permit? Can she just do a temporary permit, which she has done in the past when she has actually served her coffee, not in the trailer, but inside our studio in Leavenworth. Right now, she's talked with the Home 2 Suites, and they've agreed to let her park in their parking lot, which is a private parking lot, so she wouldn't be on city property. And so what I guess we'd be looking for is if we could just use the same temporary permit that she's had in the past to serve coffee that morning in the city of Leavenworth. And that's what I'm here for.
I'm fairly familiar with your dilemma with the situation. I know that the city permit, I believe, is $100 and a $60 inspection, food inspection, is it not?
The mobile food license is $60, and then the $100 is the health permit.
Health permit, so there's $160, and not necessarily to the city, but that. Last year, last fall, July, August, September, when we redid a lot of the ordinances,
Mobile food vending and
we
food handling.
talked
and all that stuff.
all about that, And there was even a discussion about temporary food vendors, if you will. And we specifically, in this commission, voted 5-0, and there's 3 of us that are on the commission that voted. These 2 gentlemen are new, but at least 3 of us here, but it was unanimous at the commission that we would not allow temporary permits at no charge. Obviously, there's some unintended consequences, but the purpose in the discussion we had was, you know, for those brick and mortar stores downtown, I don't want to say it's unfair, but it's somewhat unfair that they're paying real estate taxes, they're coming in, and then somebody can come in and do something. I know in your daughter's case, it's not going to change the economy of Leavenworth. The reality is, if we do have a charter ordinance, we have not a charter ordinance, but we have our ordinances set up that way. If we do make the exception, we have to throw that completely out. But we did actually discuss that. We didn't discuss your case, but we discussed that last fall, and we were all in lockstep saying, you know, anybody that has a mobile food card or something like that, they want a temporary license, they have to get a temporary permit at this cost at $100, which is the health department $60 for the city permit. I know it's not the answer you want, but I mean, that's what we're faced with, and that's the reality. I think it does hurt your daughter, but does it help the overall? I don't know. Is there more on this, Mr. Kramer and Ms. Williamson? I think you know it much better than I do. You've got the minutes of the meeting, et cetera.
I do, and at the time, you're correct, the commission, there was a consensus that they did not want to allow any mobile food vendors on the city street. Specifically, that was one of the things that was discussed, whether or not we wanted any street vending of mobile food vendors, and it was unanimous consensus that they did not. And also to protect the brick and mortar businesses in town. And the only temporary permits would be issued if it were an approved city event. So if we did have something where we closed a street, then that would be allowed. Or city events at Haymarket, then those types of things would be allowed. And we do issue temporaries for those situations only. Otherwise, it would have to be the regular permit for $60 a year for the mobile and $100 for the
Even
health permit.
whether it be for 1 hour, 365 days, or whatever. And obviously, even if they did get the permit, they couldn't put it in a parking space on Delaware. But Home 2 is obliged them, obviously.
Right, and our other mobile food vendors in town, they have to have an agreement with some other place of business or some place that allows them to put their unit on that property with their permission, and then they can do that.
Thinking a couple of them is the barbecue place of the Fairfield, and the falafel truck, which usually is at Commander's Inn.
Yeah, and one of the things that when anybody does have an annual food vendor permit through the city, if they are a part of an event, all they have to do is register that they're part of it. It's a no-cost permit then to do that. And any events that do come into town that are looking for food vendors, we proactively give them the list of our licensed vendors and say, please reach out to them. They can be at your event. It's no more cost to them. They just have to show up and tell us they're going to be there, and then we issue them a no-cost permit to be at a special event. So that was a couple options.
Part of the initial emphasis was this was a public safety issue with the inspections of food trucks, mobile food vending. Our ordinance at the time didn't really have anything in it that helped the city, which most other cities do, or all other cities do, as far as, you know, requiring these health inspections. And that's what triggered a lot of it, and then the discussion evolved from there.
So Ryan?
Doesn't sound like there's any,
Without changing, you know, our regs that we discussed at length, and obviously, I mean, I don't think we discussed there's going to be unintended consequences, but I think in any ordinance, anything that we do here, at times there are unintended consequences. But we try to do what is best for the overall good, and I have no doubt that your daughter makes a fine cup of coffee and does very well, but we're in a position now that we can't give an exception. If we would give an exception, literally 100 trucks could roll into town tomorrow and, say they've done that, and
You've opened the door.
and we really couldn't stop it.
Well, thanks for your time.
Okay, sorry about that. Are there options? Can she sit there and make coffee inside the store and give it out to customers?
Yeah, one of the, options that we did discuss.
Yeah, let's
is
talk
that-
about let's try to help you.
Yeah, we
Discuss
did,
that.
we did discuss that, she wanted to talk to Home Two Suites and just park the mobile unit
Right.
there and not bend out of it with a sign that says, come across the street to Lou's and get a cup of coffee. She could be within the store, so that was one of the things we kept trying to.
Does that work for you?
Work with, I realized she put a
Yeah,
lot of money into this, she wants to.
She's kind of lose the whole, she's got an entire espresso machine,
Yeah, I understand.
kind of thing that you don't want to move that. Believe me, I've moved it enough. I don't want to move it again, out of that trailer in, kind of into the store to make the specialty coffee that she does and
Yeah.
whatnot. So we, but we can, look at other options in the city, as I've been interacting with them, has been trying to help us look at other options, and this was one of the options that we came up with, and so, thanks for
And
your time.
I would encourage you to, and your daughter, to look for additional options, because she sounds like she's an entrepreneur. And, we can't, myself and Mr. Wilson were not part of the commission, but I'm sure it was, vetted and there's a policy that exists now. Maybe we could sometime in the future take a look at it. I do have a question though, in terms of if, a vendor, was issued a temporary license, like for a festival or something like that, is there the $160 cost associated with that, or?
No, if it's part of a festival and they don't already have a city permit, so like if his daughter came and we were having some
Okay.
event, the cost is, $10 for a 3-day, up to 3-day permit, and we figured, most festivals don't last longer than
No,
3
right.
days, so
Okay.
it's $10, and if they're, inspected by any other city or entity, we will take that inspection. If they're not, then, our food inspectors will do an inspection for a cost of $25.
Okay.
So if any other state will
They're doing,
honor, like
yeah,
Missouri.
but they're doing all of them, so they're doing them all at once.
Correct.
And I
Yeah.
remember that from running
Yeah.
the festival, they did that all at once, so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It was less
Any
expensive.
other questions or comments?
Thank you, sir.
Well, you've got the floor. Tell us about the event. What date is it? Do some advertising. You got the floor.
Well, it's her autumn affair. She
Yeah.
has one every year. She's got a spring soiree in the spring, and it's from 9:45.
9:45, I do a sidewalk style show, and
What date?
it's on
22nd.
Saturday, the 22nd of September.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, you said August, so I just
Yeah.
wondered.
Oh,
yeah.
did I say August? I'm sorry.
September,
It's
October.
okay, I let you know,
I'm
we all
off
figured.
on my days.
Yeah.
It's all good, and so, that's the event. and-
Well, if you're gonna talk, you have to come up to the mic. You can't be heard on TV and you're not being seen. So why don't you come on up here?
Yeah, that's true.
And go ahead and identify yourself because you'll be on TV.
Oh, you're sweet. So, I'm Lou, Lou Knieven, and I own Artistic Works by Lou. I am going on this November for 11 years. I have been open in Leavenworth, and it's like, Leavenworth has been so good to us, and it's been an honor to be here. So anyhow, with that, every year in autumn and in the spring, I do a big event where I unveil my new jewelry designs and my new chic fashions that I purchased to accessorize the jewelry. And so that's what's happening on the 22nd of September. And so what I do is, this is the first time I've had it in on a Saturday. Usually it's on a Thursday, but this time we do bring, and I'm proud to say that I work really hard to bring people into Leavenworth so they can also be a part of this event. So Saturday from 9:45, I do a sidewalk style show, and then it's open till like 4 in the afternoon, and they get to see all the latest new fashions. And again, it's exciting, and it's always a big event. So that's what it's all about.
Great.
And I know
Great.
that you've been here 11 years, but you also, when you're moving into your location on Delaware after you're there for a while, we had a sign code issue that we couldn't put that
Yes.
big sign. We worked with you, and if you go down east on Delaware, you can see your sign on that building. It's painted on the building or somehow, however
Right,
Young,
right.
whoever did it,
Young-
that Young Sign Company did it. But when we first did it, our sign codes wouldn't allow her to do that, and we made exceptions on that one.
appreciate it.
Because otherwise it'd be the size, it wouldn't be about the size of my laptop here, maybe a little bit bigger, but that one's much bigger, and we made some exceptions, or worked within the system on historical buildings, how we did it, so.
It's
And
been
it's worked out
awesome.
well. I mean, anytime you drive down Delaware, go east, you will see that sign.
I appreciate it.
How are you advertising for this event? Through Facebook or social
It
media?
is
or-
very big on social media. I also do emails, and so just by word of
Text.
mouth, text. So we're really big on all platforms on trying to get women there. So that's how I'm doing it right now. Yep. And then
You able to get the word on post somehow, or is that a little cost prohibitive, or?
I think I get my it's through the women's. Like I went and promoted my business when I went to the spouses
Oh,
sign
okay.
up.
Very good.
So we were there present and, talked about the Autumn Affair. I call it the Autumn Affair. And so that's how I get a hold of the military, because we're, he's retired military. So we have that military background as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Great, we're looking forward to it.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to address the commission?
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll go on to general items, mosquito program discussion.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, the City Commission continues to review the mosquito spray program. At the August 14th, 2018 study session, the City Commission heard from two experts from Kansas State University. The guest speakers, Dr. Jeff Whitworth and Dr. Holly Davis, talked about the city's program and mosquito control in general. At the conclusion of the meeting, the Commission asked to revisit the topic at a later date, specifically asking to see costs associated with the program, which we have included. As close as we could. It's hard to, you have to sort of approximate equipment costs, basically, but we thought we got pretty close. The commission can continue to review the program, elect to take action, either by maintaining, altering, or ending the program in any way you see fit. You don't need a motion, really a consensus. This is just an internal process, so any direction the commission wants to give. I did ask Mr. McDonald to give me a little more information on the larvicide. You see 100 tablets per case, $500. That's 7 boxes, so we were able to buy 7 boxes of 100 tablets for a total of 700 tablets for $504. So the information's correct, but just a little more detail behind that.
How big's a tablet, Mr. McDonald? Or,
Funny you should ask.
yeah, funny, here's the front one here.
These are the ones that we bid on. These are the
Yes.
ones that we.
What are the size of a lifesaver?
They're two
No,
inches.
they're
Cookie,
like this.
oh, okay. And you just throw them in creeks and,
Right, they're designed to dissolve over a long period of time and prevent the larvae from hatching or proceeding further in their development. They are somewhat weighted. I think these are the weighted ones.
These float.
These ones float, you can buy weighted ones that go to the bottom. But that's what we use. We have a little route that we run on areas that properties that the city owns or controls. We deal with this.
I think as we went through this process, all of us were educated quite a bit on mosquitoes or mosquito spraying. And the experts said that, the spraying is effective if the mosquitoes happen to be flying through that area or in that area right then, but it doesn't have a long-term effect. The larvicide, if we prevent it, is better. The original premise when people brought this to us and said we didn't want this, that it was killing the pollinators, milkweeds, and different things like that. I think that premise, that hypothesis is not proven to be true. But I think we're kind of all, I can't speak for all of us, but kind of agree that the spraying, the effectiveness of it is somewhat limited. I'm not necessarily in favor of completely stopping it, that we never do it again, but maybe we don't do it like we're doing now, but there might be times that the public works director, city manager direct, there's some big festivals in an area that happen to be mosquitoes, and we spray that night for it or something, but possibly we don't go up and down the streets anymore if we're just spraying money out the back of the truck and it doesn't do any good. I think the larvicide's good. I think public service announcements on our Channel 2, I know we talked with Assistant City Manager Tedder, and he's looking at some PSAs, probably around the country. I know I travel to Asia quite a bit, and I can watch TV in multiple languages, and they always have a PSA on mosquitoes, having people, dump the water in their flower pots or whatever else outside, because dengue fever and things like that are such huge issues in the tropics. And
There's a
my
real
thought
good
is-
one. There's a real good PSA in Shawnee County that,
oh, I'm sure,
Someone sent
I'm sure
to
Mr.
me
Tedder will be able to
recently.
come up with lots of them, and maybe we use some of that money on the spraying and the labor for some PSAs. Still, we can spray if deemed necessary, but it sounds like to me it's not that effective. Larvicide, I believe, is effective. And or would you agree, Ms. McDonald, that is?
You know, all the readings indicate that a program needs to address flying and the incubating ones in the streams and stuff. It's pretty effective to have an aggressive larvicide program. The problem with that is so much of the problem's on private property.
Right, yeah, and, getting to that, and, I don't want to say
I'd
common sense.
like to see some of the money used for, we could have some of those dunks over in our service center that people could use them if they wanted them. I mean, we're using this money to put out and spray. Why not use the money for something that people can use? I use them. I buy them at the hardware store. They're not very expensive. But that could be part of our public service announcement.
Is that something that we as a city could do, or is that opens up the liability that, 1 in 1,000 cases, all of a sudden, we get hit with something?
Providing-
That's a good question.
Yeah,
The city-
the dog ate it,
Providing
or,
larvicide.
or
the
the dog
larvicide
ate it, or the little Poindexter, 4-year-old Poindexter ate it, and.
I think you've got protections in the Kansas Tort Claims Act for
Yeah,
situations
yeah, I
like
would.
that.
Yeah, those are some ideas, but what other discussion?
I just think and I'm for discontinuing spraying, and I think for the reasons that we talked about in terms of, that there's only a temporary effect.
Yeah.
We've heard that from the experts, and I think you've hit on all the important points, Mr. Mayor. But I'm not sure, I think we need to make a definitive statement with respect to either continuing or discontinuing, and I'm not sure that I would have a caveat that for some, I don't know, for some future big event, would we, I think that I'm not really, I guess at this point, I'm not really convinced that that's what we should do, but I guess if that came up, the city manager, I would want the city manager to come back to the commission, but, because the big issue here is the continuation of the spraying program or the discontinuation of the spraying program. And for the reasons we've talked about, I'm in favor of discontinuing the spraying program, but doing these other things that have been mentioned.
As I stated, I'm in favor of discontinuing the spraying program as we've done it now. I don't want to get to the point of micromanaging when the city manager and the director of public works have, we got a big issue in this one area, and I think we hit it with the spray. We can make a dent into it. I don't want to wait 2 weeks to the next meeting and have us decide
No, we shouldn't
all that.
decide
I think that's getting too far in the weeds for us, but I think my opinion, the general spraying, I don't think we're not getting any great benefit out of it. We should stop it, but you still have the ability in abnormal or extraordinary cases that you can do it, and I think you do that, with proper foresight, proper thought, not just
I just think it's confusing. It will be confusing to the public.
I don't think so. I think if we stop spraying in the neighborhoods, just only spray for certain events. Like I know when the weeds come up down along the river and, you gotta spray down there before an event or before a baseball game, the city can decide that. I mean, I don't think we have to decide that. You guys know when it's rained recently and when you need to have something there. But I would discontinue the spraying in the neighborhoods on people's private property. I think a good PSA program would be good. I think that getting people to dump out the water. I have standing water, I have bird baths, but I always use the dunks in my stuff. I just don't, to me, I don't know if I really agree that it is not, the spray is not dangerous to other insects. I don't know if I agree with that, but that, be that as it may, it just doesn't seem to be doing anything for us, and for him to say, to make people feel better is ridiculous. Why are we doing something just to make people feel better when it doesn't do anything? That's not a good steward of our tax money to put it out there for that, so that's my opinion.
My thought is, I agree with you on eliminating it, but not permanently. Say, let's do it for 2 years. And then we'll monitor it again, see if the infestation is increased, if we're getting more complaints on it, then that's telling you that the spray is doing something. If it's not, and it's holding its own, then wipe it off.
Yeah.
But, you know, rather than going through a 2-day debate, trying to decide if we're gonna put it back on, it's automatic. All the city manager's gotta do is say, it's going back on.
Commissioner Wilson?
City.
In 2 years or?
For 2,
in-
do a 2-year.
Right.
Test run.
No spraying in the neighborhoods for
Right.
2 years. These other areas that we're talking about,
Right,
where
that'd be fine.
are we talking about in the, what?
It would be where the city manager and the ultimate city manager, but the director of public works, people say, hey, we got an issue at 10th Avenue Park. We got an issue at Sports Field. We think that, you know, targeted spraying right in that area in this 2-day window or something will have an effect. But not just rolling down Spruce and rolling down 10th Avenue and up and down Cherokee,
Yeah.
not through the neighborhoods, but a targeted thing that's thought out. Now I mean, you can help us here, but we just have the trucks kind of rolling through the neighborhoods at different times during the summer, is that correct? I mean, we have a plan where they're gonna go, but it's just, let's blanket the city.
Right, they are strategic, they do go through grids,
Yeah,
so they do have a plan, we do have a plan, but I would agree with you guys, a good PSA system would be good for the overall picture, the macro of it. I mean, you gotta look at the big picture, and it would be effective to catch them in the larva stage. PSA would educate the public, the
Yeah.
residents. I was gonna say also with this 2-inch tablet known as a dunk, these are for bigger areas, if you have 25 to 100 square feet. You can go to Walmart, you can go to Home Depot and get some of the smaller tablets for the fish ponds, the gutters, things of that nature. So it is readily available, whether we supply it or the stores or whoever.
I really feel strong about PSAs. I think if you ask 100 people, most people know, yeah, mosquitoes grow in water, and they kind of know that, you know, learn that in 4th grade biology. But if we start advertising or do PSAs, and say, hey, you know, they see standing water in the bird bath, and they'll start doing some proactive work.
Yeah, maybe something we can work with the schools with, getting
Yeah.
kids go home and tell their parents as a
Yeah.
project,
Kids know it, they'll
hey,
tell
let's,
their parents.
let's dump all this, make sure we dump all our water.
Well, I'm also in favor of discontinue the program, but the question that I have, Mr. Mike McDonald, will we increase the tablets that we put out when we do the increase in larviciding, or?
I think if we're going to be more aggressive in the larvicide program, that we're going to probably take a look at city-owned property and make sure we're efficient and effective. I think you'll see an increase in those purchases. And if there's a larger program, we'll work with city manager, bring it back to the commission. But certainly city facilities, we want to make sure we do the commission's direction is.
So do we as a commission, am I hearing you, that we have a consensus that we're gonna, I don't wanna say eliminate the spraying program, but eliminate it as we're doing it now? We're not gonna spray the city in grids and throughout the city, but you'll still have it, and you'll make a informed decision at times in certain areas on city property, if it's required. But
Or
we
for
see that-
special events. Yeah.
Or for special events. Is that,
Yes. the
something
only-
like that?
yeah,
Still,
yeah.
not handcuffing them, but
Right.
for the most part, you're not gonna see the trucks going down the street
Yeah.
spraying anymore.
And I obviously have great confidence in the judgment of our city staff, but could you give me 1 or 2 examples, besides a special event, where, I mean, would we, because the parks are in the middle of the neighborhoods, okay, so could you offer an example or two? of
One
where-
example that immediately comes to mind for me is when the river comes up down on 2nd Street by the wastewater treatment plant,
Okay.
that water doesn't move.
Okay.
It comes in quickly. That's probably the first place other than the campground that floods, and that water is stagnant.
Okay.
And that's more. That's really what I would have in
Yeah.
mind more so than anything. Standing water from a flood would probably be in a time
It's
that
gonna
I would
be,
envision.
it's gonna be the exception rather than.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we take it off the truck, which we will, because we'll use that truck for other things, we're not gonna take the effort and time and energy and labor to load it back on the truck to go to a 5-minute spray.
Yeah.
It would be an emergency situation, that I
And I
believe.
think
we
we all
would
know
use it.
Second Street, South Second Street,
that's fine.
when the river comes
That's
up,
clarification.
that goes, when it recedes, it's just.
That is the clarification I was
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So I think we have a consensus there. Hold on. We have a consensus that, that's what we're going to do. Ma'am, would you like to speak? Please come up and identify yourself.
Charles Filbert. We have a university in Leavenworth, St. Mary's, and so when Larry mentioned surveillance for the next 2 years, is there a way that we can contact someone at the university and say, hey, we want to do this experiment, can you help us with this? You have some students that want to do some surveillance for us, and maybe they can get in contact with someone from Topeka, and that way we can do surveillance, so then in 2 years, it doesn't just automatically renew. You can say, oh, hey, look, here's proof right here that the public service announcements, that the public education, that teaching the kids in the schools, all of this is working, so we don't automatically go back to spraying, and then in 2 years, we have to fight this whole fight again.
That's good, that's a good idea, thank you.
And I would also like to say, Kaylee at Sedgwick County, she said that they can legally sell the mosquito dunks at their public offices, they just chose not to. There's no sort of legal ramifications or legal brick walls that they've run into with that, that's just a choice not to do it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
that's
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you got the consensus from us, Mr. Kramer, and, work on PSAs and any other ideas on, how we evaluate the success of what we're doing, how we're going forward. Any questions from staff? Mr. McDonald?
No, good, sir.
We okay? Okay.
I would mention in passing, I think, we had planned to be essentially done with our mosquito spraying program this week anyway.
You're
so
done.
Yeah.
You're done.
We are now done.
So this was good timing.
You're done.
We actually dropped tablets at the beginning of the month, so it lasts 30 days, 30 to 60 days.
When do you stop the tablets? When it starts getting
This
down
is
to
it for the
40s?
tablets.
I'm sorry?
30 to 60 days, this is the last time we'll drop.
Okay,
Unless there's an
okay.
exception, unless there's a Indian summer where the temperatures are warmer.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we're done.
Or the river goes up again.
Mind if I
Okay.
get a couple of them tablets right there?
Next item, Resolution B 2205, Capital Fund Program, Grant 2018, the Leavenworth Housing Authority.
The next two items will be Andrea Cheatham, the housing manager for the Leavenworth Housing Authority.
Welcome, Mr. Cheatham.
Hello. The capital fund grant is primarily used to fund the projects and improvements to Planners 2 and the Leavenworth Housing Authority. The calculations are based on our leased units. We are currently 100% leased and have been that way for at least the last year. So we are this year receiving the maximum grant, so therefore I do ask that we adopt this grant.
Any questions?
Well, there was some supporting paperwork.
That's
what is
a
the grant
different
go-
one.
What is the grant gonna, just refresh us in terms of what the grant is going to support?
Okay, I can, but that's the next one.
Okay, next one, okay.
Yeah.
No problem, no problem. I got it. I got ahead.
So you can speak to the capital fund program grant though.
Okay.
And what we use that for.
Okay, the capital fund grant is used for the improvements. If you can remember, some of you were here last year where I brought before the board to change the bedroom and bathroom and linen closet. That was a large project that we completed, and we did use capital fund money to do those improvements, and it went over very well. In the next documents we're discussing next year, they have us file electronically the documents to do the next project. And our next project we're looking at is replacing the drain lines throughout the entire Planners 2 building in phases, because that is going to be a very large very large project. We are looking to see our options to see if we can maybe use a material that will last longer than the cast iron that we currently have. We have a lot of specs still to work out with Hal, but he's been helping me a lot, in D'Agostino, and we've been working with Dyke and just trying to see what our options are. So that's primarily what we're using the capital fund grant for.
Any questions, Ms. Cheatham? Oh, we have two. Can we roll them into one motion, Ms. Williamson, or do we have to individually?
Me too.
Okay. Okay, the first, need a motion on item number 4 about resolution 2205.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution accepting the 2018 CFP grant for Planners 2.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Motion and second to accept resolution 2205, CFP for Planners 2,
You want the-
2018.
Want the amount in that?
It's not necessary.
Nothing.
It's not, okay. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Next item is resolution B 2206, which we've already discussed. So we need a motion on that.
I move that we approve resolution B 2206, as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve resolution B 2206 as presented. Begin voting with Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Cube.
Thank you.
Next item is contract bids for 2018-2019 salt.
Public Works Director Mike McDonald will handle this item.
Hopefully you won't need in.
I like your thinking, sir. This
Mr.
is,
Marks, he enjoys it though, I think. He likes it, so.
crazy mosquitoes for snowflakes.
Yeah.
The city uses typically between 600 and 800 tons of salt per year, dealing with snow and ice control over the winter. We try to bid sufficiently to meet our needs and to have a full dome. We evaluated our needs and I believe 800 tons will suit our use and address the dome capacity. Leavenworth County for the last several years has put out a salt bid which allows for other governments in the county to receive salt at the same price. And we appreciate your effort. And again, this year they've received favorable bids, and they did approve their salt bid this morning at the Leavenworth County Commission meeting. And based on their recommendation or their approval this morning, we confirm our recommendation for approval that the city purchase 800 tons of salt from Independent Salt Company for $53.68 per ton.
We're getting 800 tons. Just trivia, how much does the county buy? How much?
I don't know, I think it's a couple thousand.
Couple thousand.
Okay. It's in my head from looking at it a long time ago.
I looked at the statistics. It didn't look like we had needed to use as much salt the last couple of years.
No, we, actually, this doesn't have the 2018 information on it. We did use a fair amount more this last winter. We switched from a salt sand mix to all salt. It's more effective for the types of ice and snow that we get, and it really reduces the complaints we get about sliding through intersections on the sand when the salt melts and having to do so much sweeping in the spring. The sand gets tracked in the houses and makes a general mess out of stuff. So the 800, normally it'd be about 600 tons, 400 to 600 tons the last few years, but this last year we used close to 800 tons. So we believe that was prudent.
Normal, when you have to salt the city, how many tons is Mr. Mark, do you know?
About 50 or 60.
So this could cover 10 to 12, 15 events.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Depending on the length of the storms.
Yeah, you have to keep that reserve. Okay.
Right.
Any questions?
Yes, I got a question, just for the record, so everybody knows, because I know that winter time's coming up. When it's at a certain degrees, the salt is ineffective. What degrees is that?
About 25.
Okay.
Below 25.
It depends where you draw the line at effective, but we do add a calcium chloride liquid to the salt, which takes it down to something under 20, I think.
Okay, all right.
But the important part is our goal is to not like burn the streets down to the pavement. It's to make them safe to drive on. So we're not out after every last piece of snow or
Yeah,
passway.
gotcha.
The other little quirk on that is that we get a lot of time rain turns to ice, turns to snow, and we don't put salt out when it's raining because it's just going to wash off the road, but then that can quickly turn to ice. So then we get a lot of questions. Why didn't you salt the roads? If it's immediately preceded by a rain, we're not going to waste 50 tons of salt.
Right.
So the guys are very attuned to that. I should say the staff down there.
Appreciate it.
And to Commissioner Wilson's point, when you asked about the temperature, some people say, certain streets you know, I saw those, look at their dry as can be, my street isn't. I submit to anyone to pour a glass of water on a sidewalk on Delaware between 5th and 4th, anytime between December 1st and February 28th. If it stays freezing, it'll stay there. There isn't one ray of sun that hits Delaware because the shade angle of the sun. So it can be 10 degrees if you have a sunny day and you're getting direct sunlight on that road. That road's gonna move. If you're in an area that's always shaded, you know, a big hill from the north or something, or from the south, that blocks it. It's going up to the south, like going up 20th Street from Spruce up to Lecompton.
Perfect example.
Is, that's not gonna thaw very good. While the 20th from 19th Street Terrace to Lecompton from the south going north, that gets the sunlight, because the sun from in the winters in the south, you get that. So there's no conspiracy here that we're not doing some streets, we're doing other streets. It's, God has a lot to do with this. So.
And we do have calibrated, off the truck are consistent between trucks. That's good. And we also track where they go, make sure we get streets, and then we'll talk about this later on in the year, but if people do have questions about their street during a snow event, please call the service center at the regular number. There'll be somebody there to answer.
How are you tracking, how do you track, what do you have, a computer program or something to track the trucks?
Yes,
or?
sir. There's a GPS locator on the key salt vehicles that is used. You can kind of see a little pathway where they've been. They're assigned specific geographic locations to work in. And when they're done, they contact dispatch and say they believe they're done. Kindly check the map and see if we missed anything, and then they'll move on to the next.
But that picture, you have that down at the service center?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? Now take a motion for the bid.
I'll move that we approve the Leavenworth County bid for rock salt at $53.68 per ton for 800 tons totaling $42,944 with Independent Salt Company.
I second it.
Motion and a second to accept the salt bid as presented. Begin voting. Commissioner Bowder?
Aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Consent agenda.
Yes, just quick, it's the first claims report for this new month of September, so just a reminder that this is the report at the beginning of the month where we pay for the employees' health insurance, their vision service plan, and Delta Dental. And I just point that out because that's one of the things that's repetitive as far as each of these reports we get for claims at the beginning of each month. I will make a motion that we approve claims for August 25th, 2018 through September 7th, 2018 in the amount of $1,320,438.43. Net amount for pay number 18 effective August 31st, 2018 in the amount of $342,507.23. No police and fire pension.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as presented. Begin voting. Commissioner Bowder?
Aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you. Let's go with discussion among commissioners before we go into executive session. Commissioner Bowder?
I don't have anything this evening.
Nor do I.
Commissioner Griswold?
The only thing I would say is, since we had a proclamation recognizing this as the Constitution Week, I would just say the most basic and essential responsibility of every U.S. citizen is to vote, and so I would encourage people to register and vote. We have the election coming up on the 6th of November. And,
Good point.
thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Wilson?
No, sir.
I just want to make a few comments. I think most everyone in this room was involved one way or another with the visit from Wagga Wagga. I know my wife and I were able to take Mayor Conkey and Mayoress Conkey. She actually has a position as mayoress.
She doesn't like being called mayoress, though.
and
She made
very
that
nice
clear.
people. We took the dinner, then out of town, so weren't involved with the rest of the festivities, but I've heard from them, and they really enjoy their time. And I know the Miss Wagga Wagga, the two Miss Wagga Waggas, I know they have different titles. They're always very appreciative of the time that we spend with them, and it's a good event for Leavenworth. People do well, so it was well received, and it was a lot of fun. We've got an executive session. I'm thinking let's go 15 minutes till 8:05 by the clock in here, and I'll read the motion. I move that the City Commission recess into executive session pursuant to the non-elected personnel matters exception per KSA 75-4319, subparagraph B, subparagraph 1, in order to discuss the city manager contract renewal. The open meeting to resume in the City Commission chambers at 8:05 by the clock in the City Commission chambers. City Attorney David Waters is requested to be present during the executive session.
Second.
Motion and second go into executive session at 8:05. Begin voting with Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 We'll be back. Do we expect, we do not expect any action after that. I think we'll just come back to close and say that for the press.